Darren Rovell with Collect TV here with Wesley Gretah of G.O.A.T Authentics. They only authenticate Michael Jordan's signature. And yes, he is the most fake signature in the world. So yes, there is a whole business devoted to figuring out whether it is real or it is authentic. Wesley, thanks for joining us. I do want to start with the idea that, at least in the 80s and 90s, it was thought that Michael Jordan's signature was so challenging with the slant of the M and the J, much like Mickey Mantle's signature was challenging. That in that way, it was like a way to say it's authentic because who the hell could ever simulate this? Why is that not true today?
Darren, thank you for having me, and thank you for all you do for the collectors out there. Um, so, to answer your question with Michael Jordan, if we go back to the 80s and 90s, um, such with everything, there's evolution. Michael Jordan's early signature was a piece of art. It was beauty. There was a
Very
lot of
simple.
character. There was much detail though. So if you look at his early 84, 85, early NBA signatures, it was a signature versus say an autograph. It was nice. There was a lot of flow and detail in the Eichel and the Jordan itself. So as that evolved, right, we start losing some more detail, especially when we get closer to the upper deck days in the early 90s. So what people did to get past replicating his signature perfectly, they would remove holograms from legitimate upper deck items. They would fake the signature as close as they can. And this is when eBay was becoming popular too. And now they had an outlet to the world to sell these fake signatures. So they would replicate it, get it as close as possible, use a real hologram number that would show up in Upper Deck's database. They would provide the fake jersey with a real hologram and have that jersey authenticated by a third party authenticator. Now they have a two for one. They have a letter with a fake signature that was thought to be believed by authenticators, and then they have the real item and they sell both.
And the interesting part about this is that you at least think, although they've told me no, that the hologram influences these third-party
I
authenticators.
Yeah, I have strong belief, and sadly, I've tested this at shows in person myself, as well as with some online submissions. Um, Many years ago, back in Rye, New York, I won't mention names, but I had a pair of sneakers that were fake, forged, that I had purchased actually from a store that you are familiar with. I brought those sneakers in to a third party authenticator and they fell them. So at that time, I figured I would test what I thought was happening. I ended up taking some holograms off a cheap, I believe it was like a 8x10 photo. I put those holograms on the same pair of sneakers, and they were then authenticated as legitimate
From the same authenticator or the
from
same
the same
company.
authenticator. Yes, and I've done that with online submissions as well.
So when Upper Deck Authenticated came out in 1992, we were thinking, oh, this is crazy. They have a notary there signing and witnessing the whole thing and the hologram. And it did seem like it was a lot and enough. And now the idea of authenticating and using holograms and hologram numbers and just faking a hologram, why do you think Upper Deck has not evolved into something greater, or is it nearly impossible? Because if it's as simple as faking a hologram and just putting a number on a hologram that was a number on something else, why wouldn't they figure out some way to change it? Or is it just a necessary evil and unchangeable?
I think Upper Deck has tried to take strides to improve their holograms over the years. I've seen the evolution of their holograms, um, different fonts, um, different sequences in regards to say camp versus other sit down signings. But the hardest thing to do right now with these holograms is to prevent these holograms to be duplicated, and they're getting close. It's not a matter of Upper Deck not doing everything in their power that they can do because they feel like they attempt. but the technology and the ideas out there are getting better.
The
So
thieves are always ahead. It's the same thing with the drug
correct.
guys and everything else. The thieves are always ahead. No, I just, for me, I just think about there have been missteps. And as the Upper Deck president Jason told us, he essentially said 90% of our database is great. It has pictures, it has the pictures of the actual items. But as you had pointed out, 10% of the database is not. And sometimes there are stock photos, sometimes they're not in the database at all, as the flight camp signatures were never logged into the database. And all the fraudsters need is that angle, and they can use a number 30 times.
Absolutely correct. Um, so when Upper Deck's database, when had come out, it was like, evolutionary in its idea that you're going to go on. Even they even had PenCam. I think was one of the greatest things that they stopped doing. But the evolution of the database was good in the early 2000s, when after 2002 actually, when they had implemented it. And this is where Upper Deck fails, is that those stock photos, like you said, if I know a sequence, I just need one number of that sequence, and I put that number in the database. I could go and sequence 45, 46, 47, 48. I could check when that sequence stops, and then I have X amount of numbers that I could use to go out, buy Mitchell and Ness jerseys that will not match in the database because they have failed to put actual photos of the item. And that is also what they're doing with the CAM holograms, as you mentioned.
How much do you think people stare at the hologram versus the autograph today?
So the hologram actually has, I think, a bigger influence than the signature itself, and that's where this really draws forgers to want to do more, because it doesn't matter anymore how good the signature is. It matters how good can we get the hologram to look like the actual Upper Deck hologram.
Let's talk about other fake things. So there's fake autographs, fake holograms, fake certs, right? Making these certs with the Upper Deck, or what do you see? I mean, I assume you see things that are sloppy that the average person wouldn't notice.
Yeah. I'll show you an example of some sloppiness actually right now, and then we'll talk further about the things that I see. I have some photos here of a fake Upper Deck COA. If you look at that COA, you see how the red and the red doesn't go down all the way to the bottom. So this is supposed to be one color, green up top and red all the way down. If you look at a real Upper Deck certificate, you see how it's only green and red? So when they printed these certificates out, they misprinted the bottom. Another thing that I've noticed is the dates that correlate to the copyrights of these certificates. Upper Deck had printed numerous certificates throughout their history, starting in 1993. Then they had a batch of 96, 2000, so forth. So every few years, there was a new batch. One of the things you have to take notice of, and I don't want to mention the letters and what correlates to which certificates, but the sequences, for instance, if you had a sequence that is current, it should not be on a certificate that goes back X amount of years. And these are the little things that I'm catching that I think a lot of people miss.
How do you educate the public? Upper Deck makes these matter-of-fact statements like, well, the public should know that, this is the case or that is the case, but they just don't. I mean, the average person is buying one Michael Jordan autograph. They're not buying 20. And so they're not really educating themselves. Is it possible for Upper Deck or anyone out there to educate on Michael Jordan and signatures in general, or is there just not an opportunity?
Well, I think the groups that I run with my partner, Eric, we have a couple of groups. G.O.A.T Authentics, obviously being the authentication, and then we have a Michael Jordan memorabilia collectors group. We do the best that we can to kind of be like vigilantes of the community and protect them by showing them fake Upper Deck items. We don't want to point out what the flaws are or what particular, style of forgery, what these forgers are doing. But we do educate them. We tell them to look out. If you're someone that really wants to collect a signature or you want a Michael Jordan item, and I tell you something is fake, we could do what we can, but you as a buyer, you have to do your due diligence. You have to examine that piece that I put in front of you and compare it to the item that you want to purchase. And if you see that something looks off, and they do, a lot of my members come to Eric and I and they say, hey, I want to purchase it on eBay. It looks a little off. We do our quick opinions for them and we let them know. So the buyers and the members of my groups are getting that benefit of us showing them what items are fake and what's kind of to look for without directly indicating what it is that we see.
Now, there are also some enterprising scam artists who will match something that's in the database, or will match something where they see something in an auction and then they say, okay, I'm going to forge it in the exact same place and use the same hologram number. So if someone looks it up, they'll see it and it's pretty close. Can you show me the one of the red and black shoes with the Jordan on the bottom and how close those two are? It's kind of crazy.
This one is actually kind of going back on a combination of hologram swapping and forging the signature. And then we'll talk about how good technology is getting. But here's the example of the sneaker. And if you look at this sneaker, right, this is a authentic Michael Jordan item. It's a beautiful signature. The number is crossed out, but the hologram is indeed a legitimate hologram. So what they did is whoever made this forgery noticed that this system, this number is not in the database. And they went ahead and they bought a fake pair of shoes. They created a fake hologram.
Wait, it is logged in the database or it isn't?
It's not in the database. It's not.
So why did they try to match it in the same way?
It just adds to the scam. It's all fake. This right here is that. This is a fake hologram, fake certificate. I'm not going to talk about the shoes, whether they're fake or not, but we know that they're easily accessible. But this is the triple threat here. Everything's fake.
Let's talk about accessibility. Back in the day, so Jordan signs with Upper Deck in '93, I believe. They would usually put it on champion jerseys, maybe Nike. Obviously, the Bulls wore Nike in '97, '98. Wasn't that easy to get, especially if you're going to try to go back, right? Like everything before 2002, I don't think is in the system, but it's hard to get those jerseys. Then you told me this in 08, they go to Mitchell and Ness, and now it's like, wow, I have no problem sourcing anything.
Correct. Accessibility has become a huge benefit for these forgers and these scammers. So to get authentic pro cuts that Upper Deck was signing in the mid 90s and early 2000s, you go to eBay, you could probably back then buy a pro cut for a couple of $100, do your swap with the hologram switch. But as these pro cuts became less and less limited because they were no longer produced, Upper Deck obviously was not able to get them. And what's the next best thing? They went to Mitchell and Ness. And we know that anyone who on Mitchell and Ness today order a bunch of jerseys, and there you have your stock. All you have to do is find a fake hologram, a real hologram, forge it, and it's out in the market. And then technology is just getting really scary today because with the auto pen and just forges in general too, with the evolution of their abilities, they are forging these Mitchell and Ness jerseys to look near identical to items that are now in the database.
Just like your own signature. I mean, you practice something enough and there's great arbitrage in it too. Let me ask you this question. Do people ever ask, like, it's too good to be true? They go on Upper Deck Authenticated and a signed jersey is $24,999. And then at an auction or on eBay, it's $4,999. Does anyone ever say, like, well, how could that ever be if the company that is selling it at retail, you're getting what would seem to be a below wholesale price?
Yeah. That's actually something that is discussed every day with people that reach out to me and my members. Um, Upper decks prices are definitely out of reach for the average collector. And that is why actually people are buying on the secondary market. You don't see as many new items that Upper Deck has in stock being exchanged through eBay or these auction houses. As a matter of fact, when you look at the items that are for sale, they're items that were already previously out in the market and they continue to circulate. Now, does Upper Deck have individuals that are purchasing? I'm sure they are, but I could tell you, I know maybe a handful or less of people that have bought items directly from Upper Deck. So those newer items are less likely to be on the open market.
Does Jordan sign at all? I know he's at least the last maybe 8 to 10 years. I was at his 55th birthday party, maybe. He's just impossible to get. He goes from the VIP area to like you can't even get to him. Like guys like Tiger, you can. Obviously, he's out. So how hard is it to get a Jordan autograph today?
Probably near impossible. Um, to get an in-person signature from Michael Jordan, you would have to be someone within his circle. Um, and if we want to bring up the cards that were recently signed, the PSA 10 cards, that was clearly somebody within Michael Jordan's circle. That's not happening for the average person that's going to the golf course in Tahoe or Jordan's NASCAR meetings. It's 0% chance for the average person.
Why has the fact that counterfeiting has been so pervasive seemingly not hurt the market? I mean, after writing the story that I did on Collect, and I hope everyone checks it out, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ever gonna go get a Michael Jordan autograph if because you kind of walk away downtrodden that you're either going to buy an Upper Deck for 25,000 or like how could you trust anything? And obviously that's one of the reasons why you guys created GOAT.
Uh, so trust is earned, right, with anybody, whether it's in personal relationships or with business. Our members trust us. We started GOAT because we were so tired of seeing people losing their hard-earned money. Um, and I feel that, and I think you've gotten the same impression that Upper Deck, as much as we want Upper Deck to intervene or eBay to intervene, it's not going to affect them. It's going to affect us as the buyers, as the collectors, because we are going to be hesitant to buy items because we're not unsure. Values would possibly drop on the secondary market, and Upper Deck will say, "Hey, well, you know what? Why intervene when it just sends people our way because they trust us more than the secondary market?" So um, it's a hard I guess it's a hard obstacle to get over. And Upper Deck is Upper Deck. They have their reputation, but people trust us, and this is why GOAT exists because we know Upper Deck items. I believe better than Upper Deck knows it themselves.
Wes, thanks for doing this for us. Tell everyone how they can get to your Facebook group and GOAT Authentics.
Yeah. So thank you, Darren, for having me. And we are at goat-authentics.com. Our Facebook group is called GOAT Authentics. You could find us a quick search on Facebook. I don't believe there's any other groups on Facebook with that. We got a little here. Check it out. This is us, GOAT Authentics. This is our logo with the goat climbing the mountain peak. All right, we're going to the top. We're going to change the game.
And then if someone wants to send something in, what's the process? How much does it cost and what do you get?
All right, so we do quick opinions for $10. We try to get those opinions back to you within 24 hours. Usually it's much quicker, but we know time is of the essence when you're buying. Remember the eBay auctions are ending or there's other people that are trying to get the same item. So go to the website. Here's our LOA. We offer $125 for these full LOAs. Something we're doing that nobody else is doing is fingerprints. Every fingerprint is unique to each letter. So it has to match the hologram, the fingerprint, and the image all has to match in our system.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this for the market and for anyone who wants to get Michael Jordan collectibles. It is getting more and more challenging, and we hope everyone reads our story on collect.com.